Commonwealth of Virginia, and I want to welcome you all to the Patrick Henry Building today, where we will be releasing the National Assessment for Educational Progress January 2024 results. Before we dive in, I want to not only thank all of you, but particularly thank our local school leaders from across the Commonwealth who have come here today to help us also focus on this moment. And those of you that work in schools know that regular report cards are important for looking at performance and how well we're doing, but they're also really important for being able to identify what's working so we can celebrate it, we can learn from it, and we can scale it. And this is why I'm so pleased that we have our 6 leaders from across the Commonwealth. So thank you and welcome, especially to you all. We have a lot to talk about today, and to kick us off, it is my pleasure, and I invite you to welcome to the stage by standing up Governor Glenn Youngkin.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. Well, good morning. Good morning. Hope everybody's well. I am going to get us started this morning. And I'm going to actually ask you to pay attention to some slides while I do this, because I think it's really important. Let me just begin with thanking Secretary Guidera and Dr. Coons. I also want to thank our friends in the General Assembly who have been great partners on this huge effort to recover from learning loss in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I also want to thank our state board. And I just, at the end of the day, our President, Grace Greasy, thank you for all you do. And I'm sure I left somebody out who I was supposed to thank, and so please feel appreciated, because you all are, because we're on this journey together. What we are working on together is to make sure that Virginia's students have not just a great education, but in my view, the best education in America, to prepare them for the opportunities that are going to be available, that are available, the dreams that they have and will have, and most importantly, to allow them to become the great people that they are ordained and destined to be. That's what we're doing together. And what we are seeing today are test results from tests taken in January 2024, so a year ago. And those test results tell us exactly what we expected them to tell us, that we had big work to do coming out of the pandemic, where students had deep learning loss, and that we in fact needed to recognize the depth of that learning loss, the persistence of that learning loss, and we had to comprehensively go to work in order to address it, and that we are making progress. Because the tests that we saw in May, which were in our SOLs, which were done after these tests, demonstrate that we are making progress. But I don't want to miss this last point. We have a long way to go, and we have a lot of work to do. And that's why I'm also encouraged by the collaborative work going on between our school divisions and the state, but also the comprehensive set of supports that are in place in order to do exactly that. And so if I can just turn us to slide 3, I think is slide 3. Keep going. Perfect. And so what we see here is our testing timeline. And of course, what we saw coming into the pandemic was the beginning of the decline of our NAPE scores. We peaked in 2017. And then we began to see this decline. And this decline really did demonstrate the fact that we had seen students become less proficient in math and reading particularly, and in particularly our young grades. 8th grade as a fabulous point to see how are we doing at this critical juncture where building blocks are translating into comprehensive learning. And in 4th grade, where we need to assess whether the building blocks are getting put in place. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And we had Virginia schools closed for an extensive period of time. We were 45th in the nation getting our schools back open. And that severely impeded both of those journeys. The building block construction, and then on top of that, the translation into building blocks, into sophisticated learning. And so that was the foundation that in 2022 and 2023 that we started this journey together. And if we could move forward one slide. So the testing timeline has really been our compass. And of course, the 2022 NAEP scores, when they came out, confirmed what we all had thought, that the learning loss was deep, the learning loss was persistent, and in fact, the signaling that had been coming out of some of our SOLs during that time period was signaling incorrectly, that in fact there was a gap. And therefore we all went to work and we launched our commitment to Virginia students, a comprehensive effort in partnership with the General Assembly to fundamentally change the amount of money that we fund into our public schools, which by the way has increased 50% since the 2019-2020 biennium, $7.3 billion more going into our K through 12 direct support. But also the real necessity for us to raise standards, to change the way that we teach students how to read with the Virginia Literacy Act, and to bring specific supports and resources to those students that need them most, at-risk students, English language learners, and let's go to work. Now, what we then saw was our next set of SOLs. Stay back where I was, please. Our next set of SOLs. And our next set of SOLs confirmed exactly what we saw in the NAEP scores. And that led us in the fall of 2024 to, once again, on a collaborative basis, launch All in Virginia. And this was hugely important because it provided 3 years worth of funding for intensive tutoring and to get at chronic absenteeism. And that was the #1 set of issues that we heard from our superintendents and our principals and our teachers across the state, that we have to provide this moment of intensive support. That program launched in the fall of 2023 to get started really at the beginning of 2024. And so we then, I'm going to go to the very end, saw our SOL scores from May 2024. And we talked about those last August. We talked about those, and what we saw in those was progress, but also a reminder we have an enormous amount of work to do. Progress, particularly we saw some of our student groups who had been the most behind catching up the fastest. We saw students that in fact had real math and reading challenges improving, but not at the pace that we want. But we also knew that the big supports that we'd put in place in the spring semester of 2024 really were beginning to work comprehensively across the state and would be running in the fall of 2024 and into 2025. And so the data that we are seeing today out of NAEP, which is from tests that were taken in January 2024, remind us, yes, what we already knew, but also encourage us that what we are doing is so important. It is so important because we do have a generation of students that we know need intensive support. And again, what the NAEP scores, these test scores from January 2024 show us is that the building blocks are fragile. And if they're not there, then the ability to stack on those building blocks all of the comprehensive learning that goes on, particularly in middle school and high schools, becomes more challenging. Now, the efforts by all of us, and we'll move forward one slide, please. The efforts by all of us have been comprehensive. And again, I want to thank everyone. There have been legislative task force, there have been governor's task force, there have been local task force from superintendent leadership, there have been work done by the superintendents associations. I mean, there has been a huge effort of collaborative work, and that has translated into a series of initiatives that started back at the beginning of the administration to rethink standards so that we could raise expectations in those standards, to actually put in place interventions like the $418 million in All in Virginia, which kicked in January 2024, right when these tests were being taken, and all of the efforts around literacy, the efforts around customized opportunities for students with seat flexibility and specific pathways and personalized tutoring, and by the way, the amazing efforts of our teachers. And at the end of the day, it is that magic moment in a classroom where a teacher and a student find that relationship and that interaction, which inspires that student to even do better than they thought they could do. And that sometimes is a student who is soaring faster, and it sometimes is a student that needs extra help. We think about all of these supports in 4 buckets, and we'll move forward to the next one. Rigorous expectations. What does it mean to be proficient? How do we get there? What are the things that students in Virginia need to know? And we've gone through a huge process in order to do exactly that. Literacy. We know if a student can't read well at a proficient level by 3rd grade, they find themselves behind for an extended period of time. And the work from the Virginia Literacy Act, which was, of course, passed 2+ years ago, but has taken the time to get training done, materials done, is now fully running. And that is so exciting. And we're extending it from beyond 3rd grade all the way up through the rest of elementary school into middle schools. We look at transparency. So with the school support framework, the performance and support framework, we now know the schools that need the most help. And how can we channel support for them? Of course, financial support, which is why I put $50 million more for these schools to support what they're doing, but also support from the state, and of course, extra focus that I know our superintendents are able to provide. Resource hubs for educators, all there. Personalized learning environments, because we know students run at different paces. So how can we have seat time flexibility? How do we make sure that we get cell phones out of the schools so that students can focus on learning and not on the 200+ notifications that they get every single day that distract them? And then how can we, then take all of the intensive individual tutoring and allow that to be customized through transparent data so that students and parents and teachers can see how that student is progressing in their own academic journey. And then, of course, all of the tutoring that's available. We know that it takes everything. And that's why when we get together today, and I so look forward to our superintendents sharing what they are seeing literally in the classrooms with students. But when we get together and we're able to reflect on the fact that we knew we had a big problem, we moved mountains in resources and capabilities, and those mountains and resources and capabilities are working. We just have so much to do, and we are committed to making sure we do it. This past August, when we got together and talked about the results from our SOL testing, from the May SOL testing, after we'd had really roughly a semester of hard work, the encouragement to see that first chronic absenteeism was on a double-digit decline. And again, I want to thank all of our superintendents and our principals and administrators for the hard work to make sure that the most important thing to a student's journey is to be in the classroom. And then we've seen the impact of the intensive tutoring, where when it is full on and comprehensively run for an extended period of time, which really started in the spring semesters of 2024, we see impacts. But it must continue. All in Virginia was a 3-year commitment, and it was $418 million. In the first full year, a little under $100 million was expended. And so moving into this year, which is a full year of work, We anticipate that a third of the $418 million will be expended, and then there's another year ready to go. And that was the whole purpose. And I know that all of us would love for 3 days of intensive tutoring to make the difference. But we know we have to do it on an extended period of time in order to support students on that journey. Let me move forward one more slide with me. There's progress. And on the left-hand side of this slide, I just grabbed fourth grade math. And what we see in fourth grade math is an uptick in our fourth grade math performance. I have to be honest, it's the national uptick as well. And I want Virginia to be the best. And this is one of the areas that I know there's a lot of focus. It's the same uptick that we saw this past August when we were together from the May tests as well. Now listen, one of our big challenges, and the superintendent will take you through it, is reading is really not picking up the way we want. And we've got to double down on what we're doing on reading. And we also see that 8th graders are really seeing challenges in both reading and math. And again, those building blocks and getting them back in place. We are seeing communities that had historically had the widest gaps recover faster because of the efforts. And so I will repeat what I said in August when we were together. What we are doing is working, and we need to keep doing it with the same intensity that we're seeing right now. Now, our next milestone will be our May SOLs. And I just want to remind everybody what those May SOLs will incorporate. They will incorporate the new standards that have been put in place for the first time. And therefore, we will have 2 proficiency scores reported. The first of those proficiency scores will reflect a constant assessment of so-called cut scores. So we will have an apples-to-apples comparison of progress. And the second set of those scores that will be reported will be an absolute proficiency increase, so that we can see, in addition to how we're progressing, but on an absolute basis, are our students reaching the proficiency levels that they need to reach in order to be fully successful? And that's one of our measures as well. And so we'll be presenting both of those with this next round of SOL scores so that we can see the full picture. And that's going to be really important. It also gives everybody an opportunity to, again, see what's coming the next year, because we will then be reporting on the second one consistently. And then we'll have apples to apples again, so we can see growth and proficiency at the same time. And let me just wrap up by concluding with the same slide that I concluded with when we were together in August. So we had challenges in schools. We had massive learning loss. It was persistent. It was deep. We know we want students to have high expectations, not low ones. We know students can soar. Some soar faster than others. And we can take off the roof and lift the floor. We know we can do this. We also know that chronic absenteeism was a big issue, and we're getting all over that as a state. And again, I want to thank everyone for the just massive collaboration. All in Virginia was set up to be a 3-year program, and we are literally fully 1 year into comprehensive execution against it. So we stand here in January 2025, and I know in my heart the progress we've made from January 2024 when these tests were taken, because we saw it beginning to show in our SOLs. And then finally, we have work to do, a lot of it. And this is for our kids. And that's why this journey together has to continue. The record funding going into K through 12 education, we added in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars more in my suggested amendments to the budget. We added in money for schools that need extra help. But we also have to execute against the tutoring programs. We have to execute against the absenteeism programs. We have to execute as a state with all of the resources that are available. And I'm optimistic. I see students every day, maybe not as many as you 5 to 6 do. And what is most important is I see students engaged. I see them engaged in learning and optimistic about their futures. And I think that is at the heart of what we are most called to do, which is to help them be the best that they can be, to fulfill their God-given potential, and to do it right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So with that, let me ask Dr. Coons if she would share a little bit deeper dive on the January 2024 data, and then we'll pass it back over to Secretary Guidera, and we're going to hear from a number of our superintendents. And so thank you all for being here today. God bless you.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for telling us where we've been, where we are, and where we're going, and helping us focus on our most important asset, our children. I also want to thank the educators in the room and recognize the exemplary and hard work you're doing, and I'm so excited to hear your stories after we finish up on the data. It's a little strange to talk about the NAEP release day today, January 2025, when our students took this assessment over a year ago. And given that we took SOLs in May of 2024 and talked about those this past fall, it's a little bit of an odd space to be in for me to talk about this data, but it is not surprising. It's not surprising for us. It's not surprising for our educators. We know that the NAEP data that we discussed today looks very much like the data we discussed in August. We also know that this data is hard. We know that we're working hard, but our students have persistent learning loss. We know that our 4th graders last year who took NAEP were kindergarten and 1st graders during the pandemic. We know that our 8th graders last year, who are in high school now, went through the pandemic in 4th and 5th grade. And we know that 8th grade students who took last year, that 4th and 5th grade year is a foundational year in education. It's the transition from those early grades to where content gets complex, reading gets more rigorous, math gets more complicated, and those students missed a lot of that. And we're seeing that persistent gap and that learning loss that our educators are working hard show in our data and our results today. We also know that since January of 24, as the governor spoke, we've done a lot of work. Our school divisions have worked on All-In. They launched their All-In plans. Our department teams have worked really hard on the Virginia Literacy Act, training division leaders, working on teacher training over the summer, principal training, lots of summer symposiums. And we know that our school divisions launched tutoring programs. We launched statewide platforms of tutoring. We've worked diligently on chronic absenteeism, and many of our school divisions have gone bell to bell on cell phone free or removed cell phones completely from their classrooms. That is a lot of effort that happened after this data. And I just want to reinforce what the governor said about all of the hard work that this data may not reflect as we're moving forward. We are seeing some progress in our 4th grade students, and we're excited to see that, in particular in math. And as the governor mentioned, our reading is not quite showing that progress that we need to see. And then in our 8th grade, we're seeing a different story. And we're going to talk about that story today, and we're going to talk about some of the challenges that our 8th graders, who are now 9th graders, are still persistently seeing in their data. So as we look at our 4th graders and their results in comparison to the nation, we see that our scale score from 2022 to 2024 did not change overall in reading as a Virginia set of students in 4th grade reading. However, as a nation, the scale score did decrease 2 points. And as we look at jurisdictions, also called states, we see that we're in the middle of the pack. We have about 11 states above us in our reading performance. We're sitting around 30 with 30 other states and 11 states below us. In math, we're seeing a little bit higher of numbers. We are seeing that we grew 2 points from 2022 in our average scale score, as the nation grew at 2 points in our scale score. So our math is on pace with national growth, and we're still sitting in that similar space. We're sitting right in the middle with 30 other states in our performance in NAEP, with 14 states below our performance. As the governor said, we want to be on top, so we do have work to do to continue to show that progress and continue to show that improvement. However, in 8th grade, we are seeing a different story. In 8th grade, we know that these students are now 9th graders, and they took this test a year ago, but our 8th graders dropped 4 points in their scale score from 2022, while the national average dropped just 2 points. We see ourselves with 16 states higher than us in the middle and 12 below. So we do know that our 8th grade reading, who are now 9th graders, is an area that we need to continue those tutoring, continue that flexible scheduling, think about incorporating that in, and we will be supporting our school divisions and thinking about how to use those all-in funds into that freshman year, and think about flexible scheduling and different opportunities that our educators are going to share today to make sure we're continuing to support our high school students. Similarly, in math, we see that our average scale score was 275, which is a drop of 4 scale score points from 2022, while the nation just dropped 1 scale score point. We are seeing 22 states perform better than us, and we are sitting with about 11 states and 20 score below us. There is an important story that, as we dig into this data, that we need to highlight. Just as we talked about with our SOL results in August 5 months ago, our students in January 2024 showed growth in their student groups. Our student groups outpaced their overall peers just as they did in their May SOL tests and in our August conversations. Our students with disabilities in 4th grade math increased by 4 percentage points. Our economically disadvantaged students scored 9 points higher in 2024. Our English learners increased their scale score by 2 points. And our Black students reduced their performance gap with their white students by 8. So in our math and our reading, we are seeing our student groups in 4th grade grow faster than their peers overall. We are not seeing that same story with last year's 8th graders. We are seeing bigger challenges. We are seeing that overall we were 4 points lower in 8th grade reading, and our students with disabilities decreased 10 points. That means that gap is widening in our upper grades, and we definitely need to focus and provide continued intensive supports for our students with disabilities as they move into high school. 8th grade math tells a similar story to 8th grade reading. Our economically disadvantaged students scored 4 points lower in 24 and 2022, as well as our English learners saw a gap of 5 points. So we know that our high school students today need continued support, and we know that our schools have that all-in funding that the governor discussed to continue to think about high school. We know that we have personalized learning platforms to continue to support those students, and we know that our high schools and our middle schools are looking at flexible learning time. We've had many conversations, and we're looking forward to those conversations, but most importantly, Secretary Guidera is going to introduce our educators and talk about some of the exemplary practices that are already happening to address some of these challenges.
Thank you so much, Superintendent. So what you just heard the Superintendent talk about is that we have a lot of work to do. You heard the Governor say this as well. But part of what we also know is that the data tells us where we need to put our energy, our time, our energy, our focus, and our money on things that work, and to make sure that we are focusing and seeing every child, meeting every child where they are, and getting them where they need to go. We also know from looking at this data, as the Superintendent just showed, we have some really promising bright spots that we need to take the time to celebrate and to learn from, and so that we can take these to scale, because as the Governor said, we cannot wait. You heard the Governor go through on the slides the real strategy of recovery that Virginia Together has been working on. But rather than us going over that again and talking about that piece by piece, there's nobody better than the 6 people in front of you that can talk about what they have been doing over the last year. And I want to note that they're here because their data shows that they are making a difference. And so we hope that divisions across the Commonwealth will be learning from what these folks are doing, because they're leading the way, and we should all leave here today inspired and full of hope of what Virginia can do when we learn from our exemplars. So I first want to invite the Superintendent of Danville Schools, Dr. Harris.
Thank you. Good morning, Governor Youngkin, Secretary Guidera, and Dr. Coons. I am thrilled to be here to celebrate our outcomes as evidenced by our unwavering commitment to the Virginia Literacy Act, the integration of high-quality instructional materials to increase rigor, and our collaborative embrace of the science of reading. We're no longer in the reading wars. The generous support of our governor through the All-In Plan has been pivotal in our success and our growth with academic achievement. Those dollars were used for extended learning, personalized opportunities for tutoring, school redesign, and extending our day. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the support of our Virginia Department of Education and Office of School Quality in building capacity and serving as our partner throughout this process. I'm incredibly proud of our teachers, our support staff, as learning for us begins with the bus picking up children until the end of the day, and they have persevered through the COVID challenges to work toward better achievement for our students, offering engaging environments for children and improving and demanding better for our children. I'm equally inspired by our parents. Our parents have received the rigor. They've received the higher expectations. They've received our expectation that they attend school. And we cannot help our children realize their dreams without raising expectations and continuing to raise the bar for all children, even children who are economically disadvantaged. So I am honored that to be here today, and thank you so much for this opportunity as we continue to raise the bar. I'm here, I have today our school board members, our city council, our city attorney, Delegate Marshall's office is represented, because in Danville we realize our community must have high expectations for all children. So we don't receive pushback on cell phone policies. Our community, they understand, and we all understand, that every day, every minute has to count for every child, and together we're really focused on shaping a better school environment for all children. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. I'd now like to invite Superintendent Bowling from Bath Schools.
Good morning. I would like to thank Governor Youngkin, Dr. Coons, and Secretary Guidera for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Commonwealth students, educators, and families. I'm currently the superintendent in Clark County, but was previously the superintendent in Bath, and also learned valuable experience while my time in Wise County. It takes all of us working together to ensure the success of our kids, America's future. The all-in funding was a blessing, as it allowed an opportunity to prioritize our greatest asset, our people. In Bath County, we were strategic in making sure the funds went directly to our team. All employees, including school leaders, came together with a summative goal of increasing student learning. In fact, I was blessed to volunteer to tutor in physical science and mathematics. Our physical education and health teacher tutored in earth science. Leading the way is so important. I'm thankful for my time with educators in small divisions. All divisions have strengths, but small divisions can pivot more quickly as student needs arise. Divisions must spend time looking for ways to succeed as opposed to making excuses. It's all about priorities. Together, we can unlock the potential in every child through high expectations coupled with supports, a priority on productive relationships, and data-driven decision-making. Teachers teach kids, not programs and buildings. We need to always keep our people as priority one. All of our people came together, stood up to tutor our kids. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm blessed to do what I do, and I realize and know that we can do this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Superintendent of Buckingham Schools, Dr. Keeler.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to be here today. Buckingham County Public Schools has shown an incredible impact of coming together as a school community with a shared focus on student success. Through strong central office and school-based leadership, the dedication of our hardworking teachers and staff, and a willingness to make necessary changes, we've made a tremendous progress in combating learning loss and getting back on track. We grew as much as 16 percentage points in some areas. on the last SOL test. And that was big for us. We used the all in Virginia funding. Thank you, Governor, appreciate that. And thank you for taking the cell phones too, I appreciate that. To adjust daily school schedules. Where we had a 4x4, we made a 7-period day at the middle school because that's where the impact was. And it worked. Creating time for targeted tutoring during a school day, not just after school or before school. We had so many students, and we're still doing it, to get individual support they needed. And additionally, we joined a comprehensive instructional program to ensure that our lessons and assessments are fully aligned. This alignment has strengthened our instructional practices and helped us to focus on the basics, especially reading, to drive student growth. Thanks to these efforts and the unwavering dedication of our school community, we are making real progress for our students in Buckingham County. And I want to say one other thing. I bet you we have more T-shirts that says all in. We gave everybody in the daggone county one. So if you like one, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. It's now my pleasure to invite instructional coach Bianco from Brunswick Schools.
Good morning. I am so excited to be here today to represent Brunswick County Public Schools. So good morning, Governor Youngkin. Thank you, Madam Secretary, and Superintendent Coons for this amazing opportunity. Brunswick County Public Schools is a very rural county with very at-risk students. We serve a very diverse and cultural group of students from many backgrounds. Due to being deemed at risk when all-in funding came out, we of course latched on, and one of the pieces that we latched on to most tightly was ZERN, because we knew that our students were struggling in the area of mathematics. So once ZERN was available, we latched a hold of it, and Brunswick welcomed it with open arms. So ZERN is utilized in Brunswick County with integrity to support mathematical difficulties, but to also celebrate mathematical successes. It is with the assistance of ZERN and our Brunswick County Public Schools effective classroom structure that math comes to life for our students, and even for our youngest of learners. In addition to providing student support, ZERN allows Brunswick County Public Schools to effectively track both qualitative and quantitative data to enhance and guide our instructional pedagogy, make effective and pertinent decisions, to inform our instruction, and to ensure our Brunswick rock stars are growing into even more marvelous mathematicians than they already are. Our mathematics program through ZERN is purposeful and explicit. It provides targeted instruction that allows support to meet the needs of our most important stakeholders, which in Brunswick County is always our students. They are our number one. Everything that we do and we put in is for them. ZERN is the pure essence of utilizing the Virginia Department of Education's math processing skills, which we feel are essential to student growth and the growth that we have made over the past year. We focus on problem solving, mathematical communication and reasoning, making connections and real world priorities, and utilizing representations. So it's through all of us together as a team in Brunswick County and utilizing that all-in funding for essential platforms like ZERN that our Brunswick School students will continue to glow and grow as we continue throughout the 24-25 academic year. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak this morning.
Thank you. And now I'd like to invite Richmond Public Schools Superintendent Jason Cameras.
Thank you so much, Secretary Guidera. Thank you, Governor and Superintendent Coons, for having us here. Truly, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to highlight the great work that Richmond Public Schools is doing. It was a very long walk for me across the street. let me just first say we have a very long way to go in RPS, so this is by no means any sort of victory lap, but we are seeing some nascent success. And so I do truly have profound appreciation to the governor for giving us an opportunity to shine a light on that. And I'd say, obviously, the reason for that is the work that our teachers do, our administrators, our support staff every single day. As a matter of strategy, I would point to three things. One, we've been relentless about reducing chronic absenteeism. Our incredible family liaisons are building authentic relationships with our families every day to remove the barriers that keep kids from coming to school. That is the only way we've been able to make success. From the high 40s in the pandemic down to we're on track to be below 20% this year. Still have a long way to go. Yeah. Second time, we have decided not to treat time as an immutable constant, but rather one of the many variables we can change to support our kids. And so by way of example, we have 4 elementary schools that started the school year in July. And they will go to school all the way through the end of the school year, meaning that they're going to school 200 days, whereas the traditional calendar is usually around 180. And we know that there's extraordinary learning loss that occurs over the summer. And so the more time that we can get kids in school learning with our incredible teachers, the better off we are. So very, very grateful to the state for many of the grants that we were able to receive to help fund that extended time. So thank you. And finally, we have been absolutely obsessed about early literacy. The Virginia Literacy Act is honestly one of the best gifts I could have ever received as a superintendent. Yes, it requires a lot, but it's the right stuff. It's the stuff that we know matters for kids. And one of my big takeaways so far is, yes, you got to have all the right materials, but we have found taking the time to rehearse these very challenging and very specific instructional moves for kids is what has made all the difference. So we do it all together. Me, the principals, the literacy coaches, and our teachers all learning together to make sure that we see that impact in our schools. So again, thank you all so very much. Thank you, Governor, for the opportunity to shine the spotlight, and thank you for your investments. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And lastly, Superintendent Hackney of Hopewell Schools.
Good morning. It is my privilege to be with you all today, and I'm so grateful to all of you for the opportunity to shine a little bit of light on the little city of Hopewell, Virginia. Sadly, the students of Hopewell had some of the greatest learning losses in the Commonwealth after the pandemic. Since then, we have employed many strategies, but 2 that I'm going to discuss today to get our babies back on track. The first is our balanced calendar. Our school system went all in pre-K to grade 12 on a year-round model 3 years ago, where our children attend the required 180 days in standard 9-week marking periods. But between 3 of those marking periods, we offer 2 week-long intersessions for students to extend their learning up to 30 additional days per year, or 6 weeks in a school year. While the intersessions are voluntary, we create these really cool camp-like opportunities that many of our students may never have, certainly in what we all know as traditional school. These magical extra learning experiences are anchored in the reinforcement of academic skills with specific emphasis on literacy, critical thinking, and real-world problem solving and research. The bottom line is, more instruction, as Jason said, is better. So those that need more can get it through fun and unique interventions embedded in an extended school year. The second strategy is our cell phone policy. 3 years ago, we simply drew a line in the sand and prohibited access to them in our schools. The impact specifically at the middle school level has been absolutely incredible. Our secondary students are now engaging in high-quality instruction without the addictive draw of those devices. 2 of the best things that we ever did, and there is definitely hope in our well. And I am thankful to all of you for the privilege to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for your leadership. And there's roughly another 127 like you who are doing amazing things across the Commonwealth of Virginia. Leadership matters. And so thank you. The concluding remarks are pretty straightforward. That we had deep and persistent learning loss. We know schools were shut for too long, and the students, unfortunately, did not gain the building blocks they needed to succeed academically in the way that previous generations of students had. We also know that we need to raise expectations, and we can do all of that at one time. And that is what we are seeing in action. The NAEP scores today were not surprising. They were expected. They did fall between two test dates so that they actually fit right where we expected them. A reaffirmation that we are making progress, but boy, we have a long way to go. And therefore, my encouragement is based on that progress and all of the work that is going on. My encouragement is based on the fact that we are now going to see a full academic year, the fall 24 and winter and spring 25 academic year, where we are now seeing All in Virginia run everywhere. We're seeing the intensive tutoring. We're seeing the input on standards. We are seeing cell phones put away so that students can indeed focus and concentrate. We are seeing students and teachers do their best work. I'm excited about what's ahead of us. This is a journey that is underpinned by the professionalism of all the people you've seen, our teachers, our administrators, folks at the state level, the local level, parents finding new ways to be engaged in their children's education, finding those unique pathways for their child so that their child can be met where they are and have that customized education that allows them to soar. That is Virginia education. And I'm excited about what we're doing. I also recognize that we have to lock arms and stay focused. And that includes making sure that we do the things that work, that we learn from each other, from these great anecdotes of success. And I have to say, I am so excited about the fact that there isn't a single school division in Virginia that says, only my way works. They share learnings, they share success, they share things that don't work. And that's one of the great, great steps of All in Virginia, which is here's funding. You all decide how best to deploy it that meets your school division in order to tackle the specific challenges and differences that we know exist from a rural school to an urban school division, from one that has a much higher level of English language learners than another one, from ones that have great distances to travel in order to get to school and others that don't, from where chronic absenteeism is replete in the division and others where it's less present, from the fact that we have students that all want to learn and want to succeed as the constant. And that is both our challenge and that is our opportunity. So thank you for coming. We will have another round of data this spring in May. We will look forward to getting together at the end of August or beginning of September and once again assessing that what we are doing is working and what do we need to do more of. Along the way, there's course corrections and constant collaboration, and so I thank everyone for that. And let's just remind ourselves that we do this for our students and our families. May God bless you all, and thank you. Okay, and I routinely conclude these discussions with a very basic instruction. It's time to go back to work. So here we go. Thank you all very much.